Howdy, with this video, I want to show you how to do short quotes, long quotes, summary, and paraphrase. I'm looking at that sample essay that's available on the help section on Schoology. Hopefully you're looking at this for a little guidance. Hopefully you've kind of read through it kind of quickly, make sure you understand what's going on and how to read a sample essay. Last time we went over the Works Citus page. Now I want to go over how to actually use sources in your essay. And you can kind of see with the sample essay, I've kind of highlighted things and made commentary, but also want to do this video. These probably what you're used to are short quotes, and they're just like what they sound. They're shorter quotes. So for MLA, that's 3 or fewer lines. You can always identify a short quote. They're the only things that ever get quote marks around them, or between a quote, summary, and paraphrase. Short quotes are the only ones that get quote marks around them. Again, 3 or fewer lines, word for word, directly from the source. You don't want to change what people are saying when you're quoting them directly. You can make minor changes, and I'll show you how to do that here with a long quote here in a second. Make sure you introduce a quote. If you want to go ahead and get your citation in there, researchers Michael Castle, Dolores Thompson, and Matthew Nathan's report. Just kind of introduce a short quote that way. If you're not going to do that, if you're going to put the citation at the end, make sure you still introduce that quote. Don't make a quote its own sentence, or it gets a little confusing to the reader. It's like all of a sudden there's a quote there and we're not sure why. But that's what a short quote looks like. There's another one down here on page 7. Well, I thought there was. There it is. And again, notice she does a good job. She introduces the quote. If it's a full sentence with the introduction, use a colon. It's a good way to get your colon into your essay. Then she gives a quote. The quote is in quote marks. The average cost of caring for a patient with Alzheimer's throughout the course of the disease is $174,000. Ends the quote, gives a citation, and then the period comes after the citation. It's exactly what a short quote should look like there. And if I go to the Works Citus page, I should be able to see the word coping there in one of the entries. There it is, coping with the darkness. So good formatting with the quote, good job introducing it, good job citing it. That's the way it should look like. That's what it should look like. For long quotes, same thing. You want to go, if you're going to quote somebody word for word, but you're going to go 4 or more lines, then you want to use a long quote format, which means it's double indented. Make this real small. You can tell we have a long quote here because it's tabbed over twice. It has to be a long quote. Nothing else gets tabbed over like that. So like the short quote, they're the only things that get short quote marks. Long quotes are the only things tabbed over twice. Here she has 2 long quotes pretty close to each other. Generally, you kind of want to avoid that, but sometimes you might have to. Kind of depends. With long quotes, make sure they're necessary. Don't just throw in a long quote to get the word count. It's a great way to irritate your English teacher. Because all of a sudden I'm doing all the work and that you're supposed to be doing. But same kind of thing. You want to make sure you introduce the long quote. You can put the citation in the introduction like she is here. Putting Carol here. She gives an introduction, full sentence with a colon. Then we get the long quote. Here we get the page number, so it's probably a book source. But we get the quote, it's word for word. These ellipses, the 3 dots, you're supposed to use this in your essay. These indicate she took something out of the quote. When I go to check your essays, I'm going to see if you took out anything meaningful. You should not take things out that change the meaning of the quote. But if the quote gets a little long-winded or something, or just something that's not necessary, take it out and use the ellipses. If you need to make a small change to a quote or an addition to a quote, you use brackets. That's what's happening here. This or in brackets indicates that she put that in there to clarify or to make it grammatically correct or whatever. Otherwise, long quotes should be word for word. They should be introduced. They should be cited. And you get another one right after that. Again, introducing with a full sentence and a colon. She changed a little something there with the brackets. Hopefully nothing major. But otherwise, it's word for word. This quoted in Carol, that quoted in means she's quoting somebody, quoting something else. Otherwise, generally, you just have the first word on your Works Citus page and the page number going there. And that's kind of what you're seeing there in the commentary. So there you have the short quote. It's in quote marks, 3 or fewer lines. Long quote, 4 or more lines offset or tabbed over twice. Again, you need an introduction to each quote and a citation for each quote. Got to tell us where you're getting your information from. The trickier ones are summary and paraphrase. A summary is when you condense material, you interpret the material in your own words and sentence structure. That can come in very handy if you kind of get a long-winded kind of quote going on, and you're kind of like, man, I could just summarize this in 2 or 3 sentences. Well, please do. Don't make your reader read through some, horrible long quote trying to figure out why it's in your essay. Summarize it in your own words and sentence structure, condense it or shorten it, and you have a summary. And that's kind of what's going on here. Dementia patients were often thought to be senile or crazy. They were confined to their houses and nursing homes and even in mental hospitals. Then we get a citation there. And what she's saying is that I got this information from somebody, but I put it in my own words and sentence structure to kind of keep it short, or to keep the style going in my own words and sentence structure. So it didn't make a big break in the essay. Also, one reason she probably did that, she knew she has 2 long quotes coming up. So she doesn't want to keep quoting, and making the reader do all the work. That's a good example of a summary. Again, there are no quote marks, no offset. It's just incorporated into the essay. But you got to make sure you cite it. You're getting that information from somewhere, and you want to make sure you cite that source. That's what's going on with the coping there. Paraphrase. This is a hard one. This is where you're restating something that somebody said, but in your own words and sentence structure. A good example might be if you're going to describe brain surgery. If you give a quote, it's going to might be overly complicated and kind of confusing for the reader, right? I'm an English teacher, not a medical person. So a long quote would just get kind of tedious and maybe a little hard to read. A summary, you can't really condense brain surgery, or you're going to leave a scalpel in someone's head, or whatever they use for brain surgery. Hopefully they're not using scalpels too much. So you might do a paraphrase, which is where you restate all the main points of the original, but you do it in your own words and sentence structure. This way, if you're talking about something like surgery, you're restating it so that an English teacher or somebody else reading your essay can actually understand, who's not a doctor. That's kind of what's going on here. We kind of got a long passage telling us how Alzheimer's was discovered and who discovered it. She's getting this information from somewhere. She just didn't, wake up one day and realize that some 51-year-old woman had talked to Dr. Alzheimer's in 1907. I mean, this information is coming from somewhere. For some reason, she decided to do a paraphrase. Maybe the original language was just stilted or overly complex or something. It's hard to tell until we go look at the original. But it's not formatted as a long quote. It's not offset. It's a little long for a summary, so it's probably going to be a paraphrase where you restate it in your own words and sentence structure. You notice she does give the citation. She tells us where it's coming from. And if we go to the works cited page, we'll see Cutler and Shramick on the works cited page. I'm not going to do that, but I'll promise you it's there. So that's what a paraphrase looks like. This is what a summary looks like. Really, within the essay, they're formatted kind of the same. I'm kind of guessing at your intentions when I look at these. But generally, if it's kind of short like this, it's going to be a summary. If it's kind of long, it's going to be a paraphrase. But as you're kind of reading the essay, you may be asking, like, well, which one's that? This one's kind of short. The disease takes 8 to 10 years to progress. Most people will succumb and eventually die from the disease. Probably a summary. It's pretty short, straight to the point. No semicolon separating 2 independent clauses, 2 full sentences. You need to use a semicolon in your essay at some point, right? There's probably another summary. But you're going to see the difference between summary and paraphrase is not necessarily in formatting, but in the length and kind of your intentions. Are you trying to summarize things and condense it, or are you trying to restate everything? There's a good paraphrase there. It's kind of longer, a little more detailed. That's kind of how they work. And again, she's making sure she cites her sources. So when we go to the works cited page, there's a Carroll there. And there it is, David Carroll. But those are 4 ways to use sources in your essay. You need to do one of each. You can do more than one. Obviously, you might do a couple of different, maybe 2 long quotes or 2 short quotes, or whatever. But you need at least one long quote, 1 short quote, 1 summary and paraphrase in the essay you're working on right now. And that's one thing we'll look at with the peer reviews a week from tomorrow. But I'm going to get off here. Hopefully it's a little bit of review, but something you might have forgotten. We're trying to get away from that cutting and pasting off the internet and making sure you're using sources properly, citing your sources, not plagiarizing. And again, plagiarizing is a good way to get in a lot of trouble, particularly at the college level. But I've had a couple of high school students get in some pretty serious trouble. So we're going to keep working with it. If you have questions, be sure to let me know. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.